Street Fighter 6 dropped like the savior of fighting games. Big reviews, it was packed with modes, and the rollback that was so smooth that it set the standard for the whole industry. Now on the surface, the launch was a dream, and this week they didn't just bring back a fan favorite, they brought back one of my personal favorites, Sea Viper, a technical Marvel character that I actually really thought would stay locked in the vault forever. But here's the catch, Street Fighter 6 isn't just a game. It's possibly the most expensive relationship that we've ever had with fighting games. $70 to start, $30 passes every year. So the real question isn't, is Street Fighter 6 fun? What we should be asking is Street Fighter 6 actually a success? Or did Capcom just rebrand the toll booth as a fighting game? And to answer that, we're breaking this down into 5 lanes. The first one is sales. Are we seeing growth? Or is it just proof that Capcom's slot machine actually works? Player activity. Is the game truly alive, or do we just log in only when the bell rings? Content cadence. Steady support or a subscription treadmill dressed as DLC. Esports. Does this game have proof of life, or is it just a multi-million-dollar marketing stunt? And last but not least, the ripple effect. Is Street Fighter 6 raising the FGC or dragging it into a live service swap? Every lane has to be backed with receipts, every number explained, and we'll show you the most important thing that people miss. How this isn't just about Capcom, it's about the future of the whole industry. Before Street Fighter 6, there was the bruise that was Street Fighter 5. It was half built at launch, no arcade mode, flaky servers, it was a rage quit fiesta. And Capcom's mantra? Don't worry about it, we'll add it later. It felt like a half-finished, half-cooked game that was simply rushed out only to get the Capcom Cup running as quickly as possible. And people weren't stupid, they felt it, they saw it, and they knew it deep down. The biggest wound wasn't just the bugs, it was the broken trust. And trust me, Capcom's head office in Osaka, they would definitely feel that. Development teams waking up to angry emails, hot fixes that were breaking as quickly as they could be shipped, and community managers spending more time apologizing. You don't fix that with a flashy trailer. You fix it by rebuilding, and with one rule. Ship a complete game first and sell the extras later. Street Fighter 5 didn't just lose sales, it burnt out developers, stained relationship, and shook the player base's faith. Now that was the debt that Street Fighter 6 had to pay. By 2018, the floor shifted. Leadership moved and new hands would grab and take the wheel. The message to the team was very clear and was taped to the wall in 200-point font. No more apology launches. And then there's Yoshinori Ono, the executive producer of Street Fighter, the smiling showman with the Blancador that dragged the series out of the grave with Street Fighter 4. He would bow out in August 2020. He wrote the goodbye himself and walked. He fell on the sword that was Street Fighter 5. The whispers would write themselves. Whether he was demoted, it was a creative reset, early Street Fighter 6 course correct, we don't really know. Maybe, maybe not. What carved in the stone is what would come next. Takayuki Nakayama and Shuhei Matsumoto would walk in with a 92-page plan. 3 pillars, wide door, and a rollback that holds. And Capcom gave them the runway to make that plan a reality. And Ono-san? Don't worry about him. He didn't vanish. He actually leveled up. In 2021, he would become the president and COO of Delightworks, the fake Grand Order powerhouse, and in 2022 to now, he will transition to Lesengo under Aniplex and Sony as president and CEO, steering one of mobile's biggest live op ships, and you know that he's still writing those upbeat dev letters. That's the second act for him, and he looks really happy doing it. Someone fell on the sword so Street Fighter 6 could breathe. That's the price of failure, and that's the cost of trust. Let's rewind the tape because every big Street Fighter 6 moment came with a bill. Now in June 2023, the launch, Capcom finally did what fans had begged for, a complete game out of the gate, World Tour, Battle Hub, arcade mode, and a rollback netcode so smooth that people call it the gold standard. Critics cheered, Steam peaked at over 70,000 players. this was the best the series had ever done on PC. But that dream launch wasn't free. There was an entry fee, $70 upfront. In year 1, the DLC would begin. Rashid, Aki, Ed, and Akuma. Very solid roster, and I'm sure many fans were happy with that. Now, Capcom wasn't ghosting us like they did with Street Fighter V, but there is a catch. You do have to pay $30 for each character pass that gets you all the characters. Year 2, this was nostalgia and crossover bait. M. Bison would return, Terry and Mai from SNK would crash the party, and Elena for the footsie crowd and smart picks. But again, all behind, you guessed it, another pass. Year 3 is looking to bring us Sagat, Sea Viper, Ingrid, and Alex, alongside DLC swimsuit outfits. Oh yeah, and we definitely have to give a special shout out to those $15 swimsuit DLCs, aka Guna Bait. Every beat looks like growth, but if you read between the lines, it's the same pattern. Capcom raises the hype with the characters, then they charge you to keep it. I mean, the calendar itself is essentially just a big business plan. Now, for us to truly understand why Capcom operate like this, and why Street Fighter DLC plans are run like this, I think it's really important that we actually take a step back and look at the human room. Who actually built Street Fighter 6, and what exactly did it cost? Because games don't build themselves, people do. Let's set the stage. It's Osaka, 2 AM in the morning. A fluorescent hum in the background, in a director with a coffee ring on a 92-page deck. Takayuki Nakayama. Now, he isn't just pitching a feature list, he's pitching a do-over. 3 pillars or we don't ship at all. Fighting Ground, World Tour, Battle Hub. Accessibility wasn't just a marketing tag, it was a door that he wanted wide open. Model controls as a real path and not a scarlet letter. In the next room, Shuhei Matsumoto keeps a printed email from the Street Fighter V era pinned above his desk. The subject line starts with, "I love Street Fighter," and ends with, "Why did you ship this?" Shuhei calls that wall the inbox. That's not to sulk, but that's to remember it's his commandment for 6 that no more apology launches will ever happen again. Up the chain is Kazuhiro Tsuchiya. He's got 30 years deep at Capcom and has become the calendar bodyguard. Now, whenever somebody says, "We want it sooner," his job is to say, "Much later." Whenever somebody says, "Cup World Tour," his job is to say, "I want the full thing back in." His job is to bring back that feeling of Street Fighter 2, that complete journey, that complete package, and he was also to shield against the same bad compromises that scarred Street Fighter V. And in the art pit, we have Kaname Fujioka, who paints like a street muralist and frames like a TV director. From the hip-hop ink to the arena walkouts and the neon dry splashes that read at 2 inches from your phone and also 10 meters in a stadium. And Ken's redesign? Now that belt tied on his arm isn't just a meme. It's a man who lost a house but also kept the discipline. Putting this all together, this wasn't a miracle sprint. It was a 4-year war of saying no to the right things and yes to the most painful ones. Building 3 games in one, Fighting Ground, World Tour and Arena Battle Hub, so that the launch didn't feel like a promise, it felt like an actual product. Capcom loves one number, 5.2 million. Now that's how many copies Street Fighter 6 has sold by mid-2025, and on paper, it's amazing. It looks like a huge win. Street Fighter V needed 6 years to crawl past the 7 million mark, and Street Fighter 6 has hit most of that in just 2 years. Capcom brags that it's proof that the franchise is stronger than ever. But let's break it down, because sales don't tell you if the fans are really happy. Street Fighter 1 would launch in 1987 and it barely sold. It was a prototype, not really a hit. Street Fighter 2 in 1991 is the juggernaut. Between arcades and home port, it's said to have sold around 15 to 16 million copies. Biggest success in the franchise's history. Street Fighter 3 in 1997 is the cult classic. It's the commercial flop, but it's the one with the hardcore respect, weak sales, and almost buried the series. Street Fighter 4 in 2008. this was the huge revival. Around 10 million sold across versions, brought fighting games back from the dead. Street Fighter V in 2016 was the stumble. It launched half finished, patched for years, and ended with 7.2 to 7.4 million in sales. It's not terrible, but the reputation was wrecked. And then we have Street Fighter VI, which released in 2023. It's already at 5.2 million in 2 years, and that's faster than 5 could have ever done it. And looking at the other rivals, Tekken 7 over 10 million sold, Mortal Kombat 11 between 12 and 15 million. Street Fighter VI may never touch those totals, but here's the trick, Capcom doesn't need to. Why? Because they can potentially milk their player base much harder and for a much longer period of time. But what we do know when we look at the sales figures across the years and different iterations is that Street Fighter VI is doing a lot better this time. And for the accountants, that's always gold. Now, taking a look at the player activity, the launch hype was easy. Street Fighter VI peaked at over 70,000 players on Steam, the biggest in the franchise's history. And EVO? Whoo! EVO 2023 saw over 7,000 entrants. That is the largest single game bracket ever. Now compare the history. Street Fighter IV built momentum. EVO grew from over 1,520 in year 1 to 1,979 in year 2. People were grinding because they loved the game. Street Fighter V, that collapsed from 5,107 entrants in year 1 to 2,625 entrants in year 2. Almost half gone. And Street Fighter VI, it's still going strong, but 7,061 entrants in 2023 down to 5,265 entrants in 2024 and 4,228 in 2025. Still, some of the biggest bracket numbers in EVO history. But is it only because Capcom drip fed the hype to keep us logging in? Here's my business read. Now, this is a live service engagement design. It's not built for loyalty, it's not built for culture, and Capcom doesn't need you to stay forever. They just need you to show up every time they ring the bell and spend whenever you do. They even designed it from a watching perspective. Drive colors that are vibrant and easy to read at a glance. Real-time commentary built into the game that teaches you while giving you hype. Now, Capcom promised no more droughts after Street Fighter V, and with Street Fighter VI, they delivered. New fighters, balance patches, crossovers, and cosmetics. And on the surface, it looks great and it looks like real support. But in case you haven't been paying attention, loyal players have potentially spent over $150 plus just to stay current. Next up is Capcom Cup. Capcom didn't just build a spotlight, they built a coliseum. Capcom Cup 11 dropped a $1 million anvil on the table. Now, one night in Tokyo, one champion crowned, and that was Kakeru, an ice-cold JP player, taking it 3-1 in the finals, doing it against a kid that wasn't even old enough to drive. And that kid is Blaz, 15 years old, runner-up to the biggest Street Fighter stage on earth. I mean, the story just writes itself, right? Veteran execution meets prodigy fearlessness. The confetti falls and $1 million changes somebody's life. But the real trick isn't just the prize, it's the moments that the arena manufacture. And you can feel that as the thunder rolls outward. Stream numbers surge as clips race across feeds, and the sponsors, they start to sniff blood in the water. Next weekend, the locals start to fill up. Everybody suddenly wants to become the next Kakeru or the next Blaz, and teams start to scout the next talent because Blaz just proved that the pipeline actually works. If he can qualify at 15 and stun the world, what's stopping anybody else from doing the same? EVO tells the same story. Record-breaking SF6 brackets, packed arenas, screaming fans, and all of it loops back to Capcom's funnel. And that multi-million-dollar prize isn't a charity. It's actually a marketing funnel, paid for by your character passes and costume buys. But the question is, does that cheapen the glory, or is that just a healthy system? And if you ask Kakeru, who thanked his wife for the pick that actually sealed the bag, or you can ask Blaz, as he left the stage at 15, a runner-up and a continental flag bearer. The stage makes champions. So here's the truth, clean and ugly. Capcom Cup is a massive billboard. a multi-million-dollar crown that makes Street Fighter trend worldwide for a week. It also works as an advertising process for the next generation of players. Now, when Street Fighter sets the pace, the rest of the industry usually copies it. And the playbook that Street Fighter 6 wrote, it isn't about rollback netcode, and it isn't about fun modes. The real legacy is monetization. Capcom proved something dangerous. You don't need Street Fighter 2 numbers. You don't need 15 million copies sold flying off the shelves. Now, if you've got 5 million loyal fans, you can bleed them much harder. And that makes more money long term than chasing mass appeal. And the rest of the industry is already following. Tekken 8 came out swinging with season passes baked into the roadmap. Now, Bandai saw what Capcom did and said, yep, I think we'll take some of that. MK1, it was packed with skins, premium microtransactions, even battle passes on top of the story mode. NetherRealm isn't just selling fatalities, they're selling the platform. And then there's Riot's 2xKO, and that's going to be free to play on launch day. And while that sounds generous to many people, free is just a doorway. The real plan is in the cosmetics, bundles, characters, and seasonal passes, and that's the same loop that Capcom already proved works. This is the Capcom effect. Fighting games used to be about the one-time buy. You got the cartridge or a disc, you owned it, and maybe an arcade upgrade here or there. Now that model is officially dead. Street Fighter 6 showed publishers a better way to do it. Make the game a live service ecosystem, keep feeding it drip by drip, and the players will keep paying. And here is the scary part. That doesn't just change how we buy games, it also changes the culture. Esports shift from a passion to a PR spectacle. Casual fans get trains to log in only when the bell rings, and publishers stop thinking in games and start thinking in platforms. Now the danger is Street Fighter 6 failing. The danger is Street Fighter 6 succeeding, because success here means that the next 10 years of fighting games, I'm talking Tekken, MK, Riot, they won't be products that you actually own. They'll just be subscriptions that you actually just rent. I think it's important to do a quick reality check, because these companies have a way of using numbers to tell stories that actually don't really tell you what's going on. And the numbers lie if you don't know really how to read them. Sold versus shipped. Now, Capcom's Platinum Titles list says Street Fighter 6 sold 5.2 million, but that number counts copies shipped to the stores and not just the ones that fans actually bought. And that is the clear difference. There is one number that Capcom shows to their investors, and there's one number that Capcom puts out for the community. Next up, peak versus health. That 70k Steam peak at launch, and it sounds great, right? Fireworks, it's huge. But the real health of a game isn't just in the Steam numbers at launch, but the real health is at the slope after the launch. And as far as Capcom is concerned, the most important thing are the spikes that are tied to the DLC drops. Esports versus sales. Now, a multi-million-dollar Capcom Cup prize pool doesn't mean that the game is actually printing money. It just means that Capcom spent money to sell you the hype. Now that's PR, not profit. Here's the bottom line. Don't let a single number fool you. Put the whole thing together and the story will become a lot clearer. Is Street Fighter 6 actually a fun game, or is it just alive because we keep paying the toll? Before we zoom out, there's one more piece of the money puzzle. Capcom is now charging to watch the finale of Capcom Cup. And whereas many of the Western player base have complained about this news coming out, I think it's important to note that there is something that many people have not been paying attention to. Capcom did not put the finals behind Twitch or YouTube. They used SPWN, and that is very important. Now, this is a Japanese pay-per-view site for concerts and esports, and that choice tells you who they really think will pay. In Japan, paying to watch niche events is normal. Street Fighter is huge over there, and the PPV has a better shot of actually making money. Now, this isn't random. It's a Japan first test. Prove that the super fans will pay, and then decide if it goes to a much wider audience. And the big question that everyone keeps asking, why now? Let's play devil's advocate and look at how much it really costs to run Capcom Cup. According to research, estimated production costs for running a high quality event like Capcom Cup are as follows. Venue plus stage can cost around $200,000 to $400,000. Broadcast crew and gear, we're looking at between $150,000 to $300,000. Travel, staff, hotels, you're looking at again another 200 to 400. Miscellaneous items, insurance, permits, again you're looking at 100 to 250k. Production subtotals for running a multi-day high-quality event like Capcom Cup can range between $650 to $1.5 million. At the price pool, that's another $2 million plus. That's between 3 to 4 million just to run one Capcom Cup. And sure, the sponsors and ads help, but they don't always cover the gap. Now here's where the switch flips. Capcom Cup 11 drew over 350,000 peak viewers on stream, and Capcom claims 10 million total watchers worldwide. That is a massive base, and even if just a fraction paid, the math still works. If 50,000 hardcore fans buy a digital ticket at $33, that's 1.65 million gross. Subtract the platform fees and processing and you're left with about 1.15 million net. And if you double that initial 50,000 to 100,000, you're now looking at 2.3 million net. That covers most of the production bill. PPV is about de-risking that spend and proving to investors that the event isn't just a pure loss leader. And the three most likely reasons as to why it's happening right now. Number one, the Japan first strategy. Street Fighter is disproportionately strong in Japan. From the viewership, the MR ranking, the cultural pull. That's one of the key markets where people will actually pay for a final stream. I mean, Westerners bitch and Japanese whales, they'll just pay. And Capcom, they know this. Number two, proof of concept. Now they're testing whether esports pay-per-view can fly in the FGC, and this is in the same way that boxing and MMA fans have been made to swallow it for decades. If this works, I mean even modestly, they've unlocked a new revenue lever. So my take, it's not desperation, it's basically insurance. They're stress testing whether the FGC can be milked like traditional sports pay-per-view, and if it sticks, expect Tekken and MK to normalize it too. If it bombs, they'll just quietly push it into the corner like nothing ever happened. So let's ask the question, did Capcom learn from their failures of Street Fighter V? Street Fighter V proved that you cannot patch first impressions. SF6 is both the apology and the invoice. The apology, that's a full launch, strong netcode and modes for everyone. And the invoice, that's the live service rent. Ono bowed out, taking the blame. And Nakayama and Matsumoto took the reins with their 92-page plan. Tsuchiya protected the calendar and the art team delivered a look that sells on thumbnails and in stadiums. So yes, Capcom learned. They also learned just exactly what we are willing to pay for. SF6 is the apology you can play and the bill that you keep paying. I like to think of Capcom as that friend who always came to borrow money from you. Now back then, your friend would ask you for $50 once in a while. But now, it's $10 here, $15 there, $30 for petrol. It's just a lot more than he used to ask you for in the past. And by the end of the year, it's roughly the same total. But now it actually feels a lot worse because he feels like he never stops asking you for stuff. And that essentially is Street Fighter now. The price generally didn't change, but the treadmill did. So what's the verdict amongst all of this? Street Fighter 6 is a success, but not for the reasons that Capcom wants you to believe. I mean, yes, it's the best launch that the series has ever had, and the rollback netcode is excellent. Yes, it's actually fun to play, despite what some people might believe. But fun isn't the only value when the system around it is essentially a big toll booth. $70 just to start, $30 passes every year, $15 in cosmetics that are just built to trend. Add it all up, and Street Fighter 6 might, and it most probably is, the most expensive relationship that the FGC has ever had. For the Capcom accountants, that's brilliant. They don't need Street Fighter to sell 15 million copies anymore. They've already proved that they can bleed a smaller fanbase much harder and still come out on top. For the players, it isn't growth, it's just rent. And that's the danger. It isn't that if Street Fighter 6 fails, it's the model of what comes after when it succeeds, and the new model that becomes the standard for the future of fighting games. I've been playing Street Fighter for over 25 years. Champion Edition cabinet ate the pocket money that my dad would give me consistently every week. and I still remember the day that my dad came back from a trip from Malaysia with a brand new Super Nintendo and Street Fighter 2 Turbo. These moments are iconic, and then when we fast forward to Street Fighter 4 bringing the FGC back from the dead, the world became a much more interesting place. And now, Street Fighter 6. I still enjoy it. I still log in from time to time. I still watch the streams. Now on the surface, it feels like the best Street Fighter that we've ever had. But love shouldn't mean blindness. Capcom gave us a great game, but they also caged it in a live service model. Every DLC is a toll, every costume is bait, and every tournament is marketing disguised as support. That's why this isn't hate. It's actually a little bit of heartbreak. Because if Street Fighter 6 becomes the new normal, then Tekken, Riot, Mortal Kombat, every fighter in the next decade won't be the games you own. They'll just be the ecosystems that you rent. So yeah, Street Fighter 6 is thriving, but it's thriving on us, and the next big fight for the FGC isn't in the Evo brackets, it's in our wallets.